Whoops, jokes. I was muted the whole time. My bad. I had it muted for a bit, and then while getting ready, and then I forgot to unmute. Story of my life. Not really, but hey, you guys can hear me now. Yeah. Woo. The one time I don't ask if people can hear me, I actually muted myself. Yeah. Yeah, this is a fan art. A little teaser of what we'll be looking at down the road. But this is something I did during a digital illustration camp. I thought I was pretty happy with this one. I don't know if I probably would clean it up because the text I just put it in the moment. But yeah. Look at them textures. I think I might fix the neck a little bit, and the torso is slightly misaligned, so I might just adjust that afterwards. But yeah. What is it a fan art of? It's Hades 2. If you couldn't tell by my messy handwriting, my terrible handwriting, this is the second game. Yeah. Oh, it's 3 o'clock. Yeah, we'll be getting started. How's everybody? You should redraw this traditionally. Oh my goodness. Maybe. I wouldn't mind. I feel like I have a hard time redrawing stuff. I feel like I'm one of those where it's like once I draw it, I will not draw it again. No matter how cool it is, and if I do end up going back and working on it, it would have to be a rough. Like this, I would call it kind of done in a way. But like if it was meant to be a painting, let's say, like in my mind, I knew it was going to be a painting, and I didn't finish painting it, then I would go back, but I might just go back to it years later. But this, I would call it done. I don't know if I would go back and redraw this just to do it traditionally. I feel like I would do something completely different if I were to go back and draw it. Like draw a different pose. Maybe in the same style, but different pose maybe is what I would do. Yeah. Trust the process. Yeah. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one because I was playing around with the textures, seeing what I could get away with. And it's kind of cool. It's like you know what, this before we officially start, I guess this is a good way to maybe show how I take studies and then turn them into like, or apply them into my own drawings. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is nothing to do with what we're streaming. We are going to be looking at animation sequences, but I thought this would be like a cool little segue before we start. Where's my mouse? Okay. So, if it'll open, yeah. Okay, so I've been doing these studies before summer started, and this is the first one that I did. And you can see that I'm just playing around with textures. I've been using this brush, if anybody is curious. I am using Krita, and the brush that I'm using is called, it's a hair, texture hair. And I only use that brush for this entire painting, and I wanted to see like how far I could take like the texturing and the like still do like lighting and blending, but with just one type of brush with a bunch of texture in it, so it's not like clean or smooth. And I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. It's kind of cool. I like all the textures and patchwork that it has, and that it's not fully clean. And then I tried it again, but this time I wanted to do some blending. So that's where this one came in, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to try another one, but try to play around with subsurfacing and some like glowing, kind of almost like a wax type, but it was an experiment just to see how far I could take it. So like this is like me trying things out and experimenting with the brush and texture. And then this is how I take that knowledge into my like personal style, because I don't personally do any painting like on my own time, and I don't personally do a lot of like realistic painting or coloring. And so it's like, okay, how do I take what I learned here with like the brush application, the texture, and then how do I apply it into my own drawing? And that's how I kind of did this, because my style is more like ink and solid, just line work and shape language. And so this is how I translate it, because I feel like sometimes I've talked about this before, either in class or on stream sometimes, where people ask like, oh, how do you like stylize, or how do you do studies, like why do I need to do studies, or like how do I grow my skill? And I think this is how you do studies, to not just do studies, but then you pluck the things that you want, and then you apply it to your own drawings in your own style, kind of thing. It's still like, I would say, a work in progress in terms of style, but yeah. It's very traditional in that you like, when you look closely, it's very chaotic, but the distance is realistic. Yeah, yeah. You apply them in other ways, definitely. But yeah, this was just a little showcase of some stuff that I've been doing. Studying is just another way to gather references. Yeah, gather references, gather knowledge, I would say. Doing studies is just a way of learning, but learning it by doing stuff that you don't typically do is what I would describe it as. Yeah. You like this one? Oh, thank you. Yeah, I like this one too. I would like to finish it. I don't know if I'll have time to do anything with it, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. We'll try something out. But hello. I guess we'll start officially now. Welcome everybody that is joining us currently. Yeah, so if you are just joining us and you're like, why are we looking at a bunch of images when the title says we are going to be looking at animation? We will be doing that soon, but of course, before we officially start, we're gonna do our the usual rigmarole housekeeping intro. So hello and welcome to our stream. If you don't know who I am, my name is Josh. I'm one of the instructors here at Wing Canvas, as well as one of the streamers here, where we do a live stream every weekend, and today it's my turn. So after a long break, it feels like it's been a long break, I am back to streaming, so hello and welcome. If you don't know who we are Wing Canvas. We are a YouTube channel where we make art tutorial videos on tips, tricks, and drawing advice to better help our fellow art nerds in this art community of ours. Our mission at Wing Canvas is to make art education easily accessible to everyone. So be sure to tune in live for free lessons every Saturday and Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you're an art nerd too, be sure to check out our links to our social media in the description below. Check out our website for our class offerings, where you can get critique, guidance, and encouragement from our instructors, because we're not just a YouTube channel, we're a school of illustration. And we also want to personally thank our Patreon members and YouTube members who support us in making free art education content. Members, of course, get perks and access to ton of exclusive things, like exclusive chat with our creators, which just happened yesterday. I had an awesome talk with Jaw Redstone, Quinn, and Broken Wings. I don't know if you guys are in the chat. I know I saw Quinn and Jaw, but I don't know about if Broken Wings and Amumu was there. I don't know if you guys are here, but yes, we had an awesome chat yesterday. So yeah, those are one of our perks. If you like to support us, you get to talk with us and show us your work and get critiques. We also will, one of the perks for being a member is that you also get class recordings and digital artworking files from our streams, as well as discount on live programs that have a limited amount of spots. So if you want to help support the channel or accelerate your learning, consider becoming a member. And that's our intro. And again, just want to throw out welcome to our stream. Before we start, as you guys know, we do a little bit of a shout out to our art challenge. if you guys didn't know, every month there is a new art challenge, and right now, I believe this is the last one before we end off the summer challenge. We did, so I guess if you submit it now, maybe I might catch it, and then I might share it. But this month's was Show Me the Emotion. So I forgot to add it into the file before stream started. I was kind of busy prepping and gathering all the clips and taking notes on the timestamps. So we'll do it live now, and I'm pretty much going to try to show off as much as I can. And it'll be a little bit, a bit of improv than what you guys are maybe used to me doing. So our first one is this one. I found it a little bit funny. The face is definitely interesting. Great expression. I don't know if it's supposed to be like covering the real face underneath, but this was definitely an interesting choice. It made me laugh a little bit, so that's why we are putting it here. Yeah, so I'm curious what's underneath though. Is there a face underneath? I don't know. But this one's by Flighty Feathers. Apparently it was posted on the Traditional Art channel as well. Oh, another Hades fan art. You know, I didn't click with me that this is Megara from Hades because I was like so caught up on the face being there that I didn't catch it that this is Megara. So that's awesome. I love Megara. I love the game, so this is cool to see some fan art for Hades. I love it. But yeah, thank you, Flighty Feathers, for submitting. And we're gonna go on to the next one. Let's see. I'm gonna just close this. And also, I want to check, Kevin. This is the last time we're sharing for this month's challenge, right? This is it. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So this was your this was the last moment. I think if you get your submissions in, I'll see if I can I'll show it off if we're able to, but yeah. So this is the next one. This is by Nukitruk. I don't know. My bad. I don't know how to pronounce it. Benooshtruk. I don't know. But I like these drawings. Great coloring. I love this one. This is a great color combination. Like this ghastly green, seafoam green with the kind of orangey red color. Great color choices, and I think it's kind of helps with all the different expressions, different poses. And I love how dynamic and expressive they are. Oh, this one's great. Like, oh my goodness. Those eyes have stories to tell afterwards. For sure. So, thank you, Benoosh Truck, for submitting. I hope I'm pretty sure I butchered your name, but glad for you. Glad that you were able to submit something. And my goodness, the lips on this one. If you guys aren't on our Discord, I am simply just going up through it and kind of showcasing it. But yeah, my goodness, these lips. My goodness. I feel like a lot of time we're spent on these lips. They look great. The rest of the rendering is also amazing too. Well blended, great texture on, oh my goodness, like the sterno muscle over here on the neck. My goodness. If I know this is not a critique, if I were to offer a little bit of critique, I would add some rim lighting on the edge, just because it looks like there's light behind the character, and it's like there's a backlit smoke machine behind this ogre, and the rendering is so good and so well blended, and almost like it's on the realistic side that it would help if you had a little bit of like reflective lighting, like a rim light on the edge of this character. But other than that, this is gorgeous. My goodness. Oh my, look at all that text, that blending work on the lips. My lordy. Okay. Oh, I forgot to shout out who this is even by. This is by Office Man. Great work, Office Man. Yeah. Okay, let's see. I'm hoping that I also don't repeat. Oh, Faye already shouted out Office Man. Dang it. Okay, well, I gave you another shout out, Office Man. But okay, we'll do 2 more that I can see, and then we'll get started. Look at this. I always love these. These are great exercises because, you know, it lets you learn that a lot of the times you don't have to do too much with the face shape, and you can do a lot of expressions already. Obviously, moving the head around and changing the angles and stretching and squashing the face will definitely help with the expressions, but kind of goes to show that you can do a lot with just simply the eyes, eyebrows, and size of the iris to convey emotions. And I think this is a good example of that. So great work. And you are, oh, it's Lycan Arts. Okay, hey, what's up, Lycan? I feel like I've seen your stuff every now and then. Actually, I think that'll be it. I feel like everything else was like from last week. Or actually, no, it's not from last week. You know what? We'll do one more. I did say we'll do one more. So this is the last shout out I'll give. I hope Faye didn't shout out this one. I don't know. I like scrolled through it quickly. There's some great stuff here, honestly, from the challenge. Like I'm scrolling through it. My goodness. But this one is trippy. I love all the halftone here, the black and white, or not black and white. Oh my goodness, the black and red, and the noise on the character. My goodness. Also, like that is interesting. That is some cool color choice. Not gonna lie. Yeah, this is awesome. I love it. Great stuff here. Okay, so there are not a lot of submissions this month? Oh no, I think there were a lot of submissions this month. It's just that I didn't get a chance to go through all of them just yet. But yeah, it looks like there's a lot of awesome stuff. There's some great like poses, not just faces. Yeah, I mean, if you guys are on the Discord, just scroll through them. There's a lot of stuff here, but oh, I forgot to shout out the artist. This is by Plepity. I feel like that name also sounds familiar too. Well, thank you, Plepity, for submitting. This is a great drawing here. And thank you for everybody for submitting for this current challenge as well. It is the last week where we'll showcase it. Next week, we're on a break. There's no stream. And so this was the last time to shout out your drawings. But again, thank you everyone for submitting. We always appreciate it when the community kind of shows what they're working on. And there's just a vast variety of styles and techniques and approaches. It's always great to see that. So what an image to end on for this challenge. But yeah, now for the moment you guys have all been waiting for, we will be doing some animation analyses in a way. So I guess we'll get to it. Now, what does next month's challenge get announced? I believe it'll be soon. Probably will be soon. But yeah, I mean, it's not really the next month yet. We've still got one more week to enjoy the summer. Enjoy the summer, you know? It's okay to take a little short break from drawing a little bit. I usually take a few short breaks every now and then. I'm a beginner in animation. I want to buy all your animation classes. So I want to know which level of animation I learn from course, and I want to know how many months of class I get if I buy all class. Wow, that's well, thank you for your interest. That's a huge commitment. I believe right now we have the fall term of classes opened up. That is a good question. I will maybe try to get back to you later, or maybe Kevin can try to find the answer for you, Sather. Yeah, because I'm not quite too sure just off the top of my head just yet. I believe it'll probably be around like 10 weeks of classes. And right now for animation, we do only have the mentorship. But the great thing about mentorship is that you get kind of like all my attention and my focus when it comes to the classes. So yeah. Okay, so we'll get started. And for today, like I said, we're going to be doing some animation analysis. And I'm thinking about the way this is going to work is I'll just put this here so there's something on the screen right now. But the way I'm kind of thinking about how to approach this is I have a few or not a few. I have a good handful of clips on hand. Let's count. I have about 8 clips. That feels like a lot. 8 clips. I'll try to run through them as best as I can. We do have 2 hours, which I do feel like is a good long amount of time to go over these, kind of react to these clips. And we're not going to watch the whole thing, of course, because if we decided to watch all the clips and dissect them and react to them, it would be quite a long reaction. And I do think that it'll be more useful if I do some animation after going through the clips. This way that we can apply stuff that we learned and kind of gleaned and extracted from these clips in terms of like tips and techniques and try to apply it. So yeah, we have 8 clips to go through. Each of them are a little bit varied. I know I did put out a poll. I took a look at the poll. Some of them I could find videos for because, like, obviously Hades, like, that one's an easy one. Princess Mononoke, I tried to find clips, but I couldn't find the one specifically that I wanted to show, and the other ones were a bit bloody, and I was like, I don't think I should show that. So I couldn't find any Princess Mononoke. So in substitution for it, I just ended up using what did I use? Sleeping Beauty. And we also are using some other stuff as well. So yeah, thank you for all the vote submissions. And usually we try to put out a community poll before the stream. So yeah, without further ado, I guess we'll approach it. And let me see. So also, to this, in a way, to not just react to clips and be like, wow, that looks so good. I mean, we are going to be doing that. We're just going to be glazing these clips and just being in awe of how good they are. But where I do want to kind of walk through them and go over some interesting things to pay attention to and some things that you can learn about while looking at animation. This is a good way of learning and doing research. So if you're like beginner to animation and you want to learn, but like you've gone over all the basics and the fundamentals, it's like, oh, how do I still oh, also there won't be any sound, but like how do I go over all of this and still like learn all the basics from animation, but like how do I learn from just studying clips? And so this is what we're going to be doing. We're just going to be looking at these clips, and I'm going to pick a very specific section just so that we can break down how to learn from our inspirations, how to learn from looking at references. So yeah, and the first one, we're going to start off with a bang. We're going to be breaking down and looking at Hades. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things that we can break down, but I'm only going to be focusing on a very specific, particular aspect of the clips. So we're not going to be breaking every principle or technique of animation from these clips because that would take forever. But yeah. How much of this will also apply to comics? Ah, that's true too. Yeah, that it could apply to comics. How many people do you think worked on this animation? Actually, that's a good question. So for some of the clips, they are from the studio itself. So if you actually go to Studio Grackle, which is the studio that worked on this, you can see all the credits for the people who worked on it. Spencer Wan is the guy that I think headed this whole thing, and I think he's done a lot of interviews talking about like what the process was like, getting asked by Supergiant, and then how long it took for him to get the sequence done, because there's a lot of compositing and background drawing and breakdowns, obviously, so it's not a lot of people, but they did a really great job with animating this sequence. And I love using this clip a lot too, because it does a really good job of showing you that you don't need a lot of frames to show a smoothness to it. So yeah, we're watching YouTube on YouTube. Yeah. Yeah, look at Kevin just putting up all the credits. Yeah, so we're gonna only be looking at the 9 second mark, and the big thing I want to show from this one is that you don't need a lot of frames, nor do you need a lot of in-betweening to show smoothness of a scene. And I wanted to show this one because it's a big action sequence, there's a lot of movements happening, and there's a lot of just stuff going on in the screen. The bone Hydra is like lurching in and swooping in towards Zagreus. Zagreus is flipping his sword and he's moving around. So I'll play it again up to, I think, the Zeus part. Actually, do I? Yeah, he summons Zeus. And I think Zeus is also a cool one to look at too. So we'll watch up to like number 16 or 17. Just to show how it goes. Like, look at that. Ooh, look at that movement. There's a lot going on and it is really fast, but also look at Zeus. Like, I think the Zeus movement, that's something new that I've, like, noticed. And I was like, whoa, that looks really, really cool. Here, try to show it again. But look at that. It's so smooth looking. Oh, my goodness. And this is the reason why I wanted to show this. Because if we go through, and hopefully, if you guys don't know any of the terms, what if you slow it down? Oh, that's true. Yeah, I can slow it down. Power of YouTube. Let's do it by a quarter and see if it's okay. It's still pretty fast. Like, it's actually a really fast sequence. Good call, Kevin. Slow it down. Yeah. But look at that. There's a lot of movements happening. Look at that Zeus. Oh, so good. So the reason why I did want to go for this sequence is that if we break it down and we go frame by frame, you'll notice that there's not actually a lot of frames happening. There's not a lot of animation frames going on. They're at first animating on ones, and then afterwards they switch up to twos, and they even actually at a certain point, if I can get to it, they switch it up to threes, meaning that they're relying a lot on the poses and how clear the poses are before they move on to the next one. So this is a good setup shot. He's anticipating and building up the movement, and he's very clear too, like the pose. He's not changing it up too much. The position of him is really clear too. The camera's not swiveling or panning across. So this way our eyes are able to track and keep up with where he is on the screen. And then after that, if I play it, like this is like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I don't know if you guys will be able to hear the clicking, but 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It means that this is all done on twos. This is animated on twos. There's an empty frame in between each drawn frame of animation. And it still feels very smooth because the camera is not moving. So someone did say that there's a lot of camera movements. There's not actually a lot of camera movements. What's happening is that the background itself has a lot of effects moving along. There's a lot of compositing, and there's a lot of things happening in front of the screen. So it makes it feel like the sequence is very dynamic. When actually, if you strip all these elements back, it's actually a very straightforward sequence. It's just done in a very precise way, and the animators know what to do to make it feel exciting. So the character's not actually moving, but here's a cool thing too, is that to make the pose feel dynamic, Zagreus is leading the pose with his head first. He starts here, and then he does a little bit of like a wind up, and then he leans forward. And you can see like our head of the character started here first, where the lava, or I don't know what this is, but let's say lava pillar, and you can see like this amount of gap he's covering. It's quite a big gap, and it's like it's a very, very big wide movement, but it's still very clear. And the reason why is because his waist hasn't moved much. His waist, if you pay attention to his waist, it kind of stays in the same position. And so what this does is it allows for the movement to feel very big and dynamic and like a big wind up, while being very clear and legible. And again, this right now is all still being animated on ones, meaning not every frame is animated, every other frame is animated, which means that it's also a lot less work for the animators. They don't have to animate everything. with the simple what is the meaning of animating on ones or twos on threes? Oh, yeah. So animating on ones means that you're animating on every single frame. Here, let me see. Okay. I'll just use an example from animation camp. So right here, like you see how frame 1, 2, and 3, that would be animating on ones. Every frame cell of the animation is blocked in. Where if I'm animating on twos, it means that every other frame has a drawing, a animation drawn in that frame. So you see how it's 3, and then 4 has nothing, and then 5 has a drawing, and then 6 has nothing. So it's every other frame that's drawn on it. So that's animating on twos. Animating on ones is when you have every frame a new drawing of animation is on each frame. And then animating on twos is when every other frame is drawn. Doesn't FPS matters as well? Yeah, so I'm animating on the usual animation frame, which is 24 frames a second. You can animate on 12 as well. Animating on 12 is kind of pretty much like animating on twos. But for me, I'm animating on 24 frames a second. And yeah, this is... it's not from Scott Pilgrim. I like that you picked up on that. But it is... I'm using the style from Scott Pilgrim. And hello, Rachel. I see that you're very ecstatic about saying hi. Glad you could join us. But yeah, so if we go back to this, and let's like just go back to this sequence. It feels pretty smooth in the motion. And if you remember, we only animated every other frame, or they animated every other frame, but it still feels very smooth, and it's because clarity of the pose and how big of a movement it is. And this is, I think, one where it's either animated on twos or it's animated on threes. Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you can see like the motion trail is also super clear. My bad. We animated this. I say that too frequently, so in the end I'm just like, oh wait, I didn't animate this. I wish I animated this. Oh, this is an example of animating on threes. So it goes, he's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you see how it's the third frame that has a new drawing to it. That's when it's animated on threes. But you can kind of, it still feels very smooth. Like there's still a lot of motion happening. And so that's kind of like the overall thing that I want to show, is that like you don't need to animate every single frame, and as long as your drawing is clear, the trajectory of the motion of how the person is moving is also clear. You don't actually have to do too much drawing and animation to it. And we'll go back to Zeus. Now, Zeus is a cool one, because this one, the first time I saw it, I was like, man, this is such a smooth animation. I bet they animated it all on ones. And then I flipped through the frames again, and I realized, wait, no, they did not. It's still animated on twos. So it's every other frame that's animated. But it feels so smooth, and it's because like the smoke effects are done really well. And here's the other part. The pose is held. So the character of Zeus as a cloud, I guess, he's just holding that wind up of the lightning, and that it allows for it to build up. That moment is like held, your eye is able to look at the lightning for like half a second, and then as it's holding up and building up and all the smoke effects are coming together and swirling, when he finally throws the lightning, it feels that much bigger and more impactful. And I like that he's also leading it with his body and his head first before the lightning just flashes into the screen. What is animating on twos? It's animating on every other frame on the animation timeline. So again, I'll show it one more time. This would be like if I animated on every single frame, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's animating on ones. But if I animated on, put a drawing on 1, skip 2, drew on 3, skipped 4, drew on 5, that's animating on 2s. Okay? Is that okay to animate on 1s and 2s both? Yeah. So it depends on the pose. That gets into a deeper conversation, because this, you'll be like, wait, there's like so much of a gap movement. And I'll play this. This is a rough animation block of this sequence. It was supposed to be like a talking sequence, but obviously I haven't like tied in the mouth movements, and it's just a simple head turn. But this is animated on 1s, and this is like, if you want it to be like really smooth and kind of like very, very clean, then I would say, yeah, go for 1s sometimes. But if there's not a lot of movement, you can animate it on 2s, or kind of what we were going over, if the motion is very big, if the movements are very dynamic and the poses change quite a lot and it's very big, you can get away with also animating on 2s, because the audience has something new to look at and it's very dynamic to look at. Yeah. Oh, it doesn't go to blank because it's a holding. So you see how on the empty frame there's a line? This means that this image on frame 5, for example, just gets, it holds and everything. Yeah. Some of the components look like they could be 3D. I don't think for this one, if I would be doing 3D. Oh, okay. We will be looking at some 3D animation, because I did want to check some of those out, but it won't really be differentiating between 3D or 2D. I think for this is called compositing. If you're wondering like, oh, is this like 3D? I think the drawing in the background, like these spikes at the back, and the clouds, and this kind of red gradation, quote unquote, sky, I think this is all animated like 2D, but then they just composite it, meaning that they're all painted separate files and then they get brought together afterwards. Oh, thank you. Yeah, like I like the girl animation that I did too. I want to finish it. But yeah, this is Hades. I think so. The reason why I brought it up, and I think is like really cool, and I do encourage you guys to like check it out and break it down, is that there's this misconception that I do think on animation, that when you want to do more complex animation, that you got to animate on every single frame, but you don't actually have to animate on every single frame. You can get away with just animating on 1s, and you'll still get, or animating on 2s, or even 3s, and still have something very dynamic and smooth. But obviously, it's more than just about animating on 1s or 2s. It's about setting up the scene, having a good payoff, and things like that, which we'll go over as well. That's why I found different clips, and each clip is going to cover a different aspect of animation, rather than just talking about all principles of animation on one clip. So that was Hades 1. And is composite kind of like what you do in Blender 2D? I'm not too sure. I haven't used Blender before, although my friend keeps saying that I should try out Blender. But I have not tried it out, unfortunately. Okay, I'm hoping I don't get an ad, because I played it already, so I'm like hoping it doesn't make me watch an ad. Okay. Oh, glad you're enjoying it too. So the second one we're gonna watch is Hades 2, and this was more about anticipation. So I'm gonna play it again, maybe a bit further back. This one we'll just play it as regular, without any kind of stopping or anything. We'll play through the good chunk of what I want to show. But this one, I want to go over, again, same studio. They probably got a few more people to work on this one, because it's a lot smoother, and they added more movement to the camera. But this is the part I wanted to show, and that is anticipation. I think a lot of people sometimes, especially early beginner animators, and I've seen this a lot too when we did our animation reviews, a lot of people are like, oh, if I want to make something dynamic and really cool and full of action, I gotta put a lot of movement throughout the whole sequence. And I wanted to highlight this one because what it shows is that you actually want to take breaks. You want to have moments where viewers and the audience can breathe. So if you're constantly showing movement over and over again, the camera's moving all over the place, characters are zooming in and out of the screen and changing positions on the screen. So what I mean by changing positions, I should say, is that right now the character, when let me see if I can find the flipping. Right now, I forgot her name, but when she's flipping across the screen, notice that she doesn't change from the left side all of a sudden to the right side. She stays on the left half of the screen for the most part. This is one way to make sure that you don't get your audience to feel motion sickness when they're watching something that's moving a lot and there's a lot of action coming in. So it's a good way to make sure that you don't give your audience motion sickness, but also so that audience are clear as to what they're looking at. Because she's doing flips, there's effects flying around, she's, things are flying towards her and everything. And so making sure your audience can see what's happening and it's clear is super important, but it's also good to give your audience a break. And that's kind of what I wanted to highlight here, which is that we got this moment. Actually, I should maybe add some more to this, which is that animation is kind of like music. There's a rhythm to animation. If everything is fast, there's not a moment for audience to breathe and take a moment to appreciate what they've just listened to. And animation is the same thing. If everything is fast and everything's moving all the time, you're not giving a moment for the audience to soak in what it is that they've just watched. So in this sequence, our character is flipping, effects are flying over, and then boom, there's a moment of pause, kind of. Can you full screen? Oh, that's true. Good call, Quinn. Wow, you're so smart. I don't know why I didn't have it full screen. But hello, Flighty Feathers. Glad you were able to join us. But yeah, there's this moment, right, where we get to breathe as an audience. And I actually really like that. It helps sell this fast speed, and then boom, it's slow. And then again, you have this one little bit where the character speeds up again, but then again, you hold it a little bit more. And then you get speed up again, a bit more action, and then it sells this big boom. So imagine if it was just like boom, 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 boom all the time, then it won't hit as hard. You want moments of levity and moments of slowdown so that the audience can breathe, so that other moments can hit harder. If this was really fast and it was just keep moving all the time, and then this explosion happened, this explosion wouldn't sell. So you want moments where it's like fast, slow it down a little bit, ramp up the speed again, and then have that big moment of impact. It's honestly like anime. Yeah, anime has a lot of moments like that too. I will say that sometimes it does depend on the show and the director. There are a lot of shows, I think, especially for like animation and anime, where it does feel like it's overwhelming on the action. There's not moments where the audience can breathe and just soak in with how good the sequence looks and how good the drawings look. And those moments just kind of pass. But I think that's why it's super important to have these moments where people can just look at what's happening and just soak it in. Because all of this is really fast right now, and you're like, whoa, there's so much going on. It looks so cool. But then once this moment of slowdown happens, that slowdown is a setup for this explosion right here. So it might seem very small, but once you see it all played together, it does have a big impact, no pun intended, on how the audience interprets what they're seeing. So that's what I want to show Hades 2, because it's a good example of having moments for your audience to breathe so that they can soak in what it is that they just watched. Okay? Okay, next one. Okay, this one, I actually don't have anything to say, but I think it's just a nice little shout out to James Baxter. If you don't know who he is kind of like an animation legend. He is animated on a lot of movies and shows, and he's super famous. Oh, Flight, I did shout out a lot of people. I think I gave you a shout out, Flighty. And Lycan, I definitely know I gave you a shout out. And yeah, but glad you guys are able to um join us. Wait, is this? No, this is James Baxter. Yeah, James Baxter animated on a lot of projects. He started off with Disney doing like Beauty and the Beast, and then now he can kind of gets brought in every now and then to do like animations here and there. But yeah, he did this sequence running sequence for Wolfwalkers. If you haven't watched this movie's great. It is a testament to why I think 2D animation should have a place in larger media. But like, look at that. It's so smooth. Oh my goodness. Yeah, just this one I don't really have much to say. It's just like a good, like it's just good. So I wanted you guys just to show it. It was like, wow, look at that. I think if I were to bring up one thing about this, if anyone, I know that there are some people who, we had this one person who sent a lot of animal animation, and I think this one's a good one to study from if you do want to do it, and that is the sense of weight. I think there's, like, you could pay attention to how the animals are moving in camera. Again, they're holding their position. They're not bouncing up and down a lot. They are moving up and down, but a lot of the weight is in the torso and in the legs. The head kind of actually follows the torso movement, which is kind of neat. Like, it's kind of like an S shape. The head and the body are moving kind of up and down in a seesaw-like fashion. It's kind of neat. But yeah, this was just cool. I just wanted to show this off because I think it's cool. Yeah. Wow. Speaking of Scar, wow, how'd you know? The next one we're going to look at is Lion King. Oh my goodness. So this one is a pencil test done by Andrea Deja, who's also a Disney animation legend. He worked on, I think he pretty much was on the same time that Glenn Keane joined animation. Oh, Shield, I just see that you sent me some stuff. Okay, yeah, I'll send you the links after. Yeah. So this one is by Andrea Deja, who's also worked with like Glenn Keane in that transitional period from the 9 Old Men, so the original Disney animators, to like the new generation that picked up after them. They kind of were passed the baton by the first generation of Disney animators, and Andreas, I think Deja is one of those people, and he animated on Scar. So this is like a pencil test where I think this is, he says pencil test, but I'm pretty sure this is just the rough of the sequence. And I'll play a little bit of it. And actually, honestly, it's so good. When I see this, it's like, my goodness, it's so smooth. Like, there's no jittering in the line work. The mass of Scar's head with how narrow it is from the eyes, like the ears to the muzzle, how it tapers, but it still feels very three-dimensional and solid, and how the body is sagging down on the shoulders. The sense of weight is so good that like there's just something magical about seeing this. It does feel like a magic trick in a sense. In that I'm always in awe. You know, when you're seeing the final drawings and it moving, it's like, how's that possible? There's just something always amazing about seeing it move. Also, I guess a little bit of spoilers if you've never seen Lion King before, but hopefully you guys have all seen Lion King. Yeah, so I think that's a good amount. So the reason why I want to show this clip actually is when doing the whole stream of spoilers, kind of, I guess. The reason why I want to show this is because when we're doing dialogue sequences, I think there's a tendency to make dialogue sequences very dynamic. Like, the characters bobbing their head around a lot, they're moving around, kind of moving their mouth a lot. But if you look at how Scar is animated, yes, he is moving a lot, but it's not as, there's a lot of moments where, again, he's just holding the pose. Like, look at that moment where he talks and then doesn't move, and he just holds it. And again, it's giving the moment for the audience to breathe and let the actor and the performance to breathe. If the character is always just moving around over and over again, it doesn't help sell the character. And it also gives personality to the character. If every character is animated with dynamic, flowy, smooth movements, then all characters end up not looking like characters, but they just feel like it's the same person over and over again. So if you look at the performance of Scar, yes, it's very dynamic and flamboyant, but there are moments where he doesn't move a lot. He kind of holds his head angle and mostly talks with his lips or talks with his eyes and looks at Simba in a very, a little bit menacing and you don't want to trust him kind of a way, where you're like, there's something sinister going on, where he's scheming, you know? So that's why I wanted to show off this, because one, Andrea Diaz is awesome. He's a great animator. But also to show that dialogue sequences don't always have to have the character moving over and over again. There are great moments of pauses and speaking with the eyes and speaking with like the whole head. So yeah, another great sequence. And yes, Kevin did bring up that I should send him the links, and I will be sending all the links to him, and so that we can post all the videos that I go over, so you guys can take a look at them yourselves. Okay, the next one that we're going, I know we're speeding through this, but I looked at the time and I'm like, oh wait, it's already like 9. Is there not 9? It's already like 3:50. I'm like, dang, this is going fast. So yeah. Hold up, though. I kind of want to see if I can... I forgot how to pop out chat. Okay, there we go. This way I can just minimize the screen. The animator is a genius. Yeah, he really is. Okay, so the next one that we're going to look at is Tarzan. And, man... I know the story for Tarzan is a bit more straightforward and streamlined, but it is a really good, like, I remember watching it when I was in university, and I'm like, man, I haven't seen this movie in, like, years. I saw it when I was a kid. And then I watched Tarzan in, like, 3rd or 2nd year of university, and it was just like, holy, was Tarzan always this, like, the movie, did it always look this good? Like, the movie looks amazing. And it honestly, it does. It looks so good. So I wanted to show this off because I think this is always like a really cool reminder for any aspiring animators out there to do research. This clip I'm not going to go over too much, but this is a very excellent example of the amount of research animators did to animate Tarzan. Now obviously this is more for if you're animating something realistic, or if you're trying to push the boundaries and limits of your anatomy and animation skill. But I think this is like an excellent one that breaks down the amount of work some of the old Disney animators went and did. So in this video, Glenn Keane basically went to Paris and he got to study a lot of French sculptures that were there in France. And he used that as inspiration for drawing Tarzan, because this was the first time that Disney would ever animate an anatomically accurate character. Obviously, Tarzan doesn't look super realistic, but they wanted to use realistic human musculature to be a part of who Tarzan is. So they took a lot of studies of sculptures so that they could better understand how the body works and where muscles would be, and like how like defined and exaggerated and stylized muscles can be while still feeling somewhat realistic. And the cool thing too is that they brought their drawings to a anatomy professor in Paris, where he would draw over Glenn Keane's drawing of Tarzan, and then show how the muscles would work on the human like character on the character of Tarzan. And this is actually a really fun exercise that we do in university as well, where you grab a cartoon character and map on muscle anatomy on the character. And I remember walking through the halls and there was someone who did a drawing of SpongeBob and showed where the muscles would be on SpongeBob. It was kind of freaky. And then another person did like Mr. Incredible and kind of showed how the muscles would be overlaid on someone like Mr. Incredible. So this was really cool because remember, this is also back when there was no internet. There was like, you would have to go to like the library or go to the museum. And so the fact that they were able to do this and figure it out and then also get it to work on Tarzan is actually really cool. They did a lot of experimental animation tests on Tarzan to figure out not only how he would move, but also what his personality is. And this is something that I don't think gets talked about a lot about animation, but sometimes it's good to do test animations and research to figure out like what the character would move like. What is their personality when they're moving? Because we like to focus a lot on just character design and whoa, it moved. But then after it moves, like, okay, well, now it needs personality. He needs to be a character. So how do we bring personality to the movements of Tarzan? How do we bring movements to the way he acts? How does he interact with things that's a little bit different from the average normal human being because he never got to live with people before? So this is really cool. And a big part of this is research. They did a lot of exploration about how Tarzan would just move in general. There's this really cool clip that I think is coming up next. This is Tarzan playing with a bar of soap, or I think it's a bar of soap. Or no, it's a piece of fruit. Oh, this is the bar of soap one. So it's like, oh, how would Tarzan stand? Because he's not like he hasn't been around humans for long, so maybe he would stand weird. And playing around with soap, but still adding personality to it. I don't know. It's really cool. They couldn't have had the figure under the fabric. I mean, they had to do a lot of exploration. They wanted him to be accurate. Okay, so that was Tarzan. Then the next one we're going to look at, and we got about like 2 more, I think, before we do a little bit of like some master study for animation. But this is one that always blows my mind when I see it, and it's Prince of Egypt. If no one's ever seen the movie before, I encourage you to look at the pencil tests for Prince of Egypt, because oh my goodness, this is one where it legitimately makes me just like, my mind is blown. And I'll send this clip as well, because I think this is like an awesome clip breaking down some of the pencil animation for Prince of Egypt that it makes me feel like a kid again when watching it. But I wanted to show this first one because they do kind of show like the amount of exploration to figure out what Moses would look like, his head shape, the style, consistency. Like, look at this. It's so good. Though the hair shape, how it actually feels solid as he's rotating his head. Like, it stays like this solid, almost like the sculpture of David headpiece for it. It's awesome. I wish they would bring this style back for some kind of 2D animation, because when you see it in motion, oh my goodness, does it look so good. So I'm gonna play this, and hopefully you get to see just like, oh my goodness, it blows my mind. It makes my heart just go like, oh my goodness. It takes my breath away whenever I see these. It is mind-blowing as to the level of skill that is there in something like this. It feels almost realistic. The movement for it, oh my goodness, it's so good. So yeah, I wanted to show this one, and this again is also a good example of how good the artists are at drawing structured characters while having it be stylized. And you'll notice that Moses isn't moving a lot. It's a very subtle animation sequence where he's mostly just moving his head, and sometimes his body shifts a little bit. But that head turn, oh my goodness, look at that. that head turn was so smooth. It's so good. Oh my, oh my goodness, it's so good. And then the next one I wanted to show is Moses reaching into the burning bush. Because the hand drawing, oh my goodness, hand drawing is goes crazy for the hand. So this is when he kind of reaches in and touches the flames. So this is the rough pass. And like just wait till you see the final like pencil pass for this sequence. Oh my goodness, it is just mind-blowing. I would love to see this brought back again. Like, oh my goodness, like the movement. I know, right, Quinn? It feels like 3D. Roxy, like everyone who's looking at this, like it looks three-dimensional. But it just goes to show that they did a lot of research and exploration to make sure that the structure of the character is believable and that it makes sense. Cause my goodness, does it look good. Also, I wanted to show this like one last sequence. Ooh, look at that. Oh, wow. But this one, I wanted to show this one. This has a good sense of weight to it. Like the way he's just chilling. But there's such a good sense of weight in the hands. The way his, like the wrinkles are on his face and how he's just sitting there. It's so good. And then like the sense of weight here for how they're walking. Ooh. Man, they put so much heart and soul into this sequence. It's so good. But yeah, I think my favorite is honestly this sequence over here. It's so well explored. And so the reason why I did want to bring this is because Prince of Egypt, if you look at the characters' faces, it's super hyper stylized, but it still feels realistic. And that's because they've figured out the dimensions of the head. I'm pretty sure they are relying a lot on like sculptures, like the sculpture of David, a lot of the Renaissance sculptures to figure out dimensions of it. Because I'm looking at it now, Moses' head does remind me a little bit of those kind of old sculpture pieces. It's very defined. There's a very distinct front plane of the head and a side plane. And it's the same thing with his hair too. And you can notice it on these character sheets where the top plane is very clear and almost like the top is like this ring. And then you got these almost like flower petals that kind of come out, and it's still the top plane. And then you have this core shadow over here that separates the side of the hair to the bottom plane. And I think because they figured this out very, very early on, that's why when Moses is moving here, it feels so realistic in 3D. Because even though it's pencil and our brain is like, man, someone drew this, it's just 2D animation. But because it's so well figured out and realized, and the planes and three-dimensional structures is so well realized, it feels almost like it's 3D. So yeah, it's like magic. It's so good. Style is dynamic and is good. Yeah, it really is. It's something different. And then I know one of you guys voted for Sleeping Beauty. If you guys have never seen Sleeping Beauty, I do encourage you guys to watch it. It is dated in its story, but it is probably my favorite looking animated films. It is one of the best looking. It is so good. The style for it is something else. Unfortunately, I could not find a higher quality video, so yes, it does lose a little bit of its magic, but it's so well done. And the reason why I say it's well done is because if you actually take a look at the design of this character, I forgot the king's name, but he's flat. Do you notice that there's no shadows and that there's no indication of form in the way the character looks? But when it's moving, it feels three-dimensional. Oh, whoops. Thank you, apps. Anywhere. But like when they're moving around, there's no shadows, but it still feels three-dimensional and it still feels like believable. Like it's so well developed and figured out, and you can tell that like underneath the characters, like the animators, when they designed them and animated them, they are thinking three-dimensionally. It's just that when they put it all together, they're like, can we get away with it just being flat? And you can. And that's why it looks so good. It's flat like a storybook. Yeah, it's like a storybook, but it just looks so good. It's when you see this in high quality and high def and on a TV, it's mind-blowing how technically sound this is. So I wanted to pair this up with Prince of Egypt because it is like they're kind of similar in the sense of they're both highly stylized, but they feel very realistic in the way that they move, in the way the characters perform and kind of move around, and how it still feels believable, even though it's flat. So it's like two kind of very distinct versions. Prince of Egypt, very sculptural and 3D. Sleeping Beauty, flat, but still also very believable. And the movements feel structured. The characters feel structured. Yeah. All flat colors. Yeah, it's crazy. And Kevin doing his job here. Yeah, I hate it. Apps Anywhere sometimes just like pops up and like, oh, we're checking for updates. And I'm like, what? Okay. Why? Oh, thank you, Apps Anywhere. Still just hovering there in the background. Okay, and the last one that I wanted to show before we do a little bit of like a animation experiment is Hotel Transylvania. Oh, Bambi would have been a good one. You know, I think I did think of Bambi, but I was like, nah. So I did want to give a little shout out to 3D animation. Yes, Gendy Tartakovsky. I think that's his name, right? Gendy Tartakovsky. Yes. If you guys don't know who he is, he worked on Dexter's Laboratory. Samurai Jack is probably one of his most famous creations, and he also did Star Wars Clone Wars. Yeah, he did a little short movie. Well, I guess it's not short. He did like a movie, an animated Clone Wars film where there's not a lot of talking. It's so good. So I wanted to bring this up because I feel like a lot of people tend to, well, most recently, people mostly just think of Spider-Verse when it comes to 3D animation films. But I wanted to bring up Hotel Transylvania. Story's a bit simple. It's not a bad story. It's like fun. But I love it because of how stylized and exaggerated the movements are. And I think that's what Gendy Tartakovsky is like great at. Is that he's great at directing animators and the character designers to really just push the dynamics and movements of the character. So I'll play this very short moment. But pay attention to how Dracula is moving. He's just like, he's got very dynamic, smooth, swishy movements that don't really quite make sense, but it works for this character and this style of a movie. And there's something cool that I noticed too, is that his poses are always super clear. You notice that like this pose that he's about to like here, this pose, it doesn't really quite make sense, but it's so dynamic and it's super, super clear. I guess in terms of lighting and the framing of it with the objects, he gets lost a little bit. But when you think about the pose itself, it's super, super clear. You can tell what's happening while also still remaining very dynamic because everything else is staying still in a comical way, but the arm is moving in a very fast, dynamic fashion. And I think that's what like why this film is so fun to watch, because Dracula himself is a very animated in a very bizarre way. Like look at this buildup of emotion. It's anticipation before like what? I love how he moves in an S-like way instead of just zipping straight to the baggage. He kind of flies in there like a fish. And it's really cool because I don't think you really see motion like this in animated films too often for 3D, because it does break the rigging and the movement of the characters for 3D. So that's kind of like, I think, the limitation with 3D animation is that 3D is very dependent on the rigging and the character design, whereas 2D, you can kind of almost break it however you want as long as the transition of the drawing works. Whereas like 3D, it's harder to do that, and I like that Gendy pushed for it, or his team pushed for it to allow it for it to work, so that you can still get these very over-the-top dramatic movements with characters, even though it's 3D. Because it's actually a bit harder to do this for 3D animation, but it's cool that they're able to push for it. So yeah, I wanted to give a little shout out for 3D animation, because I feel like the sentiment is like 2D animation is great, and I do personally prefer 2D animation more, but there's a certain magic to 2D animation that isn't quite there. Yeah. Okay, so we got about an hour left. So what are we gonna do for the last hour? We are gonna do a master study, and this is a way to learn. So if you're like, oh, okay, I know the techniques and the basics for animation, and I want to animate something, but I don't want to come up with my own sequence. I just want to learn from the masters. You probably have heard of master studies before. Master studies is when you do you look for a very famous painting and you try to study and recreate that painting as close as you can. You can do the same thing with animation as well. So if there's a sequence that you really like, you can try to recreate the animation sequence. And so that's what we're going to do. I hope this is simple enough. What we're going to do is try to reanimate Ivy from Lackadaisy, and the great thing about it is that it's a looped sequence, and I'm like, this should be maybe simple enough. It's simple, just a dance step kind of sequence, and I'm noticing now that she's just taking a step back and a step front, and yeah, we're gonna try to do this. We'll see how it goes. And to help us, I actually found the pencil test for this sequence that got posted on their channel as well. So this is great because what it allows me to do is that I can kind of take a look as to how they approach the structure of the character, and it allows me to take a look at how they simplify the character and how they approach the movement and the height. So I can see that they drew a height line for both the feet and the head, and then this way I can be like, oh, okay, this is how high they wanted the character to move up and how low they wanted the character to move down. So I can use this as kind of like a guide along with the final animation to see how they maybe cleaned some stuff up. So I'm going to be using both. And yeah, are you going to animate the clothing? Maybe. We'll try. Okay, so there's two approaches. I was thinking of animating using this character, my boxer girl character, but applying the movement of Ivy's dance. So I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm like, yeah, that might be a neat challenge. Or I just stick to animating Ivy. So what do you guys want? Should I just animate Ivy, or should I mix the two? Ghost Hunter character. I don't know if I can do the Ghost Hunter character. I'm trying to think of the way he's designed and if it would work. I think there would be a little bit more work that I would have to do to do it. Okay, I would also take away maybe the gloves. Should I take away the gloves? I don't know. So I did update the boxer character. I'll show you guys kind of what she looks like a little bit. Where's the hair? Did I put the hair in? Should have put the hair. Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is what my character kind of looks like now. The Super Saiyan. Yes, I brought her into Super Saiyan mode. This is kind of what she looks like now. So the reason why I wanted to go with her is because I have drawn her enough that I feel like I am quite familiar with how I would animate her. So that's why I'm like, I kind of want to do this one. And if you guys haven't seen it, this is like a little shout out for the animation camp. Wanted to, let's see. Where did I put it? Did I not put it here? Oh, here it is. So I did this sequence here. Kevin posted it on our community page if you haven't seen it, but I did a jumping sequence for her as well. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I've done a few sequences with her already enough that I'm quite familiar with how she should look, and I've done a character model for her and like a character rotation, so I feel like I could probably do the dance somewhat. It'll still be rough. Do want to clarify, it'll still be rough, but I feel like I'm more confident in drawing her than drawing Ivy or Nils, just because I've done enough sequences with her that I can kinda, I think, pull it off. But yeah, who is this character's name? That's true, I have not given her a name. Right now it's just Boxer Girl. she's a Boxer Girl. But yeah, well, that's kind of the goal. Trying to we're gonna maybe do it with this. We'll see how it goes. I'm gonna shrink the canvas since we don't need too much space, and then so this way I can also put it here. It'll be just a rough block, and I will say for this, what I'm going to be paying attention to the most are the body movements. So I'm not going to be paying too much to things like the clothing necessarily. What I want to pay attention to is almost ignore everything. Like, don't look at the eyes or the hair or the clothing or the tail. What I want to pay attention to is actually the weight of the character. So we'll slow this down. And what I'm trying to study, and this is why we're doing this, is because I want to show you guys how to do an animation study or a master study of a character. So what I'm looking for is the weight. How is the character moving up and down? And obviously the most complex part are the legs. How are the legs moving throughout the scene? And how high is the character moving? And obviously there's a few in-betweens. This sequence is, I think, animated on on twos. So what we'll do is break down what the first pose is. I think what we can check out, let's see, what's the first pose? We're going to follow it bit by bit. So I'm going to try to find the very first pose. Okay. Let's start with this one. I'm going to treat it almost like a walk cycle. I'm going to try to find like a contact point for her pose. So let's say we'll start with the down pose first. So the down pose is going to help me gauge. Actually, I'll put it here. I'll minimize the screen a little bit. I guess I won't have space for the overview. So I'm gonna put it here so we can all see the sequence. Maybe I'll shrink it. I don't really need that much space for drawing it, so I'm not gonna worry too much about it getting cramped. So let me just adjust this. Adjust the settings. And give me a sec. I'm just going to save the file. we'll call it animation study. We got the first layer, and I think what we'll do first is actually label the height and ground plane for a character. So I see also the names people have done putting specific clothes on character, because I have a character and I know what he's going to look like, but I have no idea how to put it all together. Clothing, I would say you should have a good idea as to the body size of the character. So I'll go over this maybe quickly before we start. But like, let's say this is your character. It's a very big, stocky, square-like character. Have an idea as to what the mannequin underneath should look like, because clothing essentially just sits on top of your character and it sags down. It's sitting on your character, but it also is being pulled down by gravity. So I would say that if you're not too sure about drawing clothing or how to draw clothing on top of your character, do some clothing studies, understand how folds and clothing work, or else it's going to be a little bit hard to approach it. Okay. Oh, oops. Not gonna... Okay, this is gonna be our ground plane. I want to just make a plane for where the ground would be, and roughly how high. Actually, we'll put it a bit higher, where this person will be. We'll do a quick block in. Oh, I guess also a center line would be good too. Somewhere around there. Yeah, it should be good enough. So we'll just lower the opacity. And the reason why I'm doing this again is because if you look at the test that they did, they put a height and middle line. And I'm guessing the middle line is there so that they can tell where the character should stay as they're moving, and also how much the body is swaying back and forth. Because the body is going from left to right to left to right. So the middle line is also good to gauge how much the body is moving from side to side. And then also the names, I see people liking V. I feel like that's too close to Arcane in terms of like a name. Like but Vivian Val, name her Val. Oh, that's a good name. I think maybe V would be pretty good. Or my boxer. Oh, see, is your boxer character the one, the crocodile one? It's been a while. Which one was your boxer character, Quinn? I'm sorry for forgetting your boxer character. The little guy. Man, you're gonna have to... A crocodile was the coach? Oh, okay. I like vaguely remember. You'll have to like tag me with the characters so I can remember who it is or what the character looks like. V as a nickname. V. I guess V. There's so many characters with that like name type. Okay, so let's see. Full character, probably. You know, we'll start off with the rough one. It'll be like easier to look at, maybe. Okay. Let's try to find the same pose. I want to see how far down they made her go. It's like, oh, okay, it's not too bad. So it seems like the head is around here. It also looks like the head is slightly at an angle, and maybe around here, something like that. And remember, I am drawing this, or hoping to draw this kind of in the style of my Boxer Girl character, so it'll look a little bit different. Proportions will be also slightly bit different as well, but also this is going to be a rough. What I'm trying to learn and capture is more of the motion and the how they're approaching like the body. So it'll have a little bit of improvisation too, just because my character is different, and in a sense this is kind of like gesture drawing. You know what? We'll add the boxing gloves. Will I maybe later regret it afterwards? Maybe. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Bye, Flighty. I know, August is almost over. It is absolutely wild. What's harder, gloves or hands? Oh, hands. Hands for sure, I think, are harder. Because gloves, you can kind of think of them almost like rectangular prisms. Whereas hands, like, you gotta think about like the finger positions and everything, whereas I feel like with this one you can just focus on the dimensions of the glove. This is so goofy looking already. No one can regret good fashion choices. What? It might be because I can't really get the proportions right, also where certain body parts start, and specifically for the torso, pelvis area, especially for male anatomy. Okay. Then I would say maybe if you want to, you can probably start by figuring out body proportions first then. Get an idea of, do some more figure drawing, tighten up your character drawing first is probably the biggest priority that you might have first. And then this way, drawing clothing and the extra stuff will be easier. It'll still take some work, don't get me wrong, but it'll be easier to add on and understand afterwards. Because I think drawing is one thing, you can kind of wing things a little bit more when you're drawing, but when you're animating, you have to be a little bit more certain with poses and how things look and how characters look. Yeah, it's a little bit harder with animation. So I would say if you're not too sure about the poses and anatomy and structure of characters, then work on that first, and then the other stuff. Draw cat. That's true. You can't focus on that more. Like cats, you just draw paws. Ooh, samurai character, that's cool. I like that. Okay, let's see. Feet are about here. Just doing this. I guess the other hard part too is that like my character's legs are different. And it looks like this leg is in the back. Such an interesting... Yeah, this is gonna look so goofy. I'm kind of excited to see how this would look. Excuse me. Oh, the feet. The feet are kind of slightly broken, but not in a bad way. So in 2D animation, this is why I was saying for 2D versus 3D animation, there's a lot of pros and cons for each. For the pro for 3D animation is obviously you don't have to draw it. You can rely on just shifting things around on the keyframe, on the graph, animation graph. Whereas for 2D animation, you have to worry about drawing and keeping the consistency of the drawing, consistency of the character, and then also your drawing skills also have to be pretty good as well. But for 3D animation, what you end up lacking, depending on the rig, and when I say rig, it's where the rigging technical artist is putting like joints, how are they meshing the characters, so do characters fold in proper places, Are they bending, and does their skin fold in the right spots? All those things are actually part of the rigging artist's job and responsibility, and how well the rig turns out will allow for artists to bend, or the animators more specifically, to bend and twist characters in certain ways. I'm going ahead. I hope you all have a good Sunday. Hope you, Josh, finished too much. Thank you, Lycan. Hope you have a good weekend as well. Bye. I'll try not to, and thank you. I will probably try to approach this as best as I can. But yeah, I think that's like the interesting thing about between 3D and 2D is that 2D you have the benefit of twisting and exaggerating forms and technically breaking the character, but that's kind of like the charm of 2D animation, I would say. Okay, we got one frame down. Now, you might be thinking, oh, the next frame he will do is go on all these in-betweens. And actually, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually move on to this one. So what I'm doing right now are the keyframes, or the major poses in this movement. So it was the down pose, and then now I'm going to do an up pose. And I'm going to draw the one where she's at her highest height. And the other thing too is, like, on the animation time frame, you might also look and realize, like, wait, you just animated on frame 1 and then on frame 3. What about all the frames in between? Why are you only leaving one frame empty? And that's because I'm not worrying right now too much about the accuracy of the spacing on the timeline. What I'm trying to focus on first now is simply just the poses. So I'm only worrying about the drawing of the character and the poses that I want to draw for her in the sequence. And I was telling this to one of the members last night, which is that, and I hope this is like encouraging for anybody trying out animation, which is that in animation, if you think back to the good old days of pencil and paper, before there were computers, before you could fix things very easily and move things around, their timeline was basically just sheets of paper. They couldn't, flip, they couldn't like skim through the timeline, they couldn't like copy and paste frames, they had to manually put everything in. So if you think about it, when they're figuring out timing, all they're doing is figuring out the poses for the character, and then figuring out the key poses, and then figuring out, like, do they want to speed up the drawing? Do they want to, not the drawing, do they want to speed up the sequence? Do they want to speed up the animation? Or do they want to slow it down? And so if they want to slow it down, then they got to add more drawings. They got to add more sheets of paper to it. If they want to speed it up, then they maybe take out some drawings. They take out some frames instead. So I think that's kind of, I hope that's kind of, I find it encouraging at least, because sometimes it's like, wait, I gotta think ahead to all these like frames. I gotta plan ahead and think about like where everybody's gonna go and like where all the poses are gonna be and everything. But the animators, obviously back then, they did some planning and figured out like how long a sequence might take, but they also didn't have to be like, man, okay, this is gonna take like 20-40 frames exactly. They had a rough idea, but then they had to figure it out afterwards once they drew in all the frames, and then they kind of plan things out, and it's like, oh, actually I can get away by putting this over here. I can get away by extending the sequence and all that. So hopefully it's a little bit encouraging that you don't have to have the full future figured out for your sequence. Have a plan, obviously, have an idea as to how long it should take, and then afterwards, fill in the blanks as you go. If you can draw a cube, you can draw a square at multiple angles. That's also a good piece of advice. Is that a dodgeball reference, Kevin? You can draw a cube. If you can draw a square, you can draw a cube. Oh no, the onion skin's not showing up. No. You can reuse some of these frames and just fix the legs for the reverse pose, right? That's true. Yeah. We'll see how they approached it. I would say that it's like a balance between following the study. I think there's like two ways you could think about it. On one hand, I'm kind of trying to follow this sequence as close as possible, kind of like when you're doing a real life study, like a portrait study. Maybe the goal for the portrait study is like the lighting. So in this case, I think my goal is to figure out how are they approaching the poses and the bounce and the movement of the legs. So maybe for now, I might simplify it, kind of like what you're pointing out, Quinn, of like I could just flip the pose or flip the legs and it'd be fine. But we'll see how it turns out. We'll see if it works and if I can like do that. But I'm also coming from a traditional sense. You know how it is. Remember last night I was just painting it in and you're like, couldn't you just put like a filtered layer and that'd be good enough? And I was like, that's true. Did not think of that. So yeah, sometimes I just think about things in a very manual way of like, oh, I could just fix it like this. Okay, so we got one pose down. Got the down and then we got the up. And then this is the transitional pose. So let's see. So I'm really just doing these three poses. So hopefully you can kind of tell that I'm not drawing like a bunch of drawings. I'm not drawing a bunch of frames. I'm simply just doing 3 frames. And I think I should probably have... Oh, this is what you meant, Quinn, by having it flipped. You know, let's try it. Let's see if it works. Honestly, it might work. It could be something that they actually did. Okay, wait. Okay. I think the foot is here, probably. Hey, okay. Yeah, I think that kind of works, actually. Look at that, Quinn. I learned traditionally. I know, that's what happens. It hinders my speed. That's why I'm so slow. Maybe, yeah. So right now I'm trying to track like where the legs are going, because this is the... Maybe we'll color it in. Color it in like this. And then this foot stays in the front. And then this foot... Okay. This one should be like here. And we'll move it down maybe. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look. Yeah, I think that kind of works. Saved me like 15 minutes. That's true. So I mean, like, the whole point of this is like, I'm not trying to recreate this because that's like, no, that's so much work. But what I wanted to do is just show that you can learn from this. See how quick that was? Like, we did this whole thing. I didn't have to do any research. I didn't have to do any like further planning. All I had to do was just copy something that someone else already figured out. But that's the point of a master study anyways. Like, you're trying to learn from someone else who's done the work, and you're like, you know what, thank you for doing the work, I'm gonna try to learn from you. And that is pretty much what doing a master's study is. And this looks pretty good. So now I'm gonna try to just add the face, because yes, this is a very simple animation, and because we only have about 20 minutes, I think I'm just gonna try to add the face, like a rough block in of the face for it. Yeah, and exactly, like, people have just been learning from each other, basically, and I think that's fair. It's part of animation, part of art in general. This is gonna be so bizarre. Okay, so I did make a reference for my character, so I'm gonna open it. Yeah, so I'll show you guys what it looked like. This is my character rotation turnaround. It's a bit stiff. You know, the eyes are not quite figured out, but I think, like, in terms of the outfit and the pose, or in terms of like the proportion and the outfit, I think that's kind of like what I want to focus more on. And then we also have the character design here for like the different head turnaround. This was like the first initial take of the style, and then this is more of like closer-ish to a final pass of it. So this is what I'm going to be using. I'm not going to leave this on the screen, obviously. I'm going to have it off to the side, so it's easier for me to just look at it and rely on it while I'm drawing. Oh, thank you, Quinn. Yeah. Yeah, this is... Also, if you didn't know, this is breaking out of my comfort zone in a sense, too, because I don't usually draw like this. So it's actually a little strange drawing in this style. If you guys could not tell, it is not my go-to style. Oh, I want to check if the hair is coming down. We'll use this one, because I do think it is coming down. Yeah, it is coming down. The face kind of stretches out a little bit. Hair is slightly out. We'll have the hair fly up just a little bit maybe. And I do like that the eyes are closed, so maybe we'll include that as well. Oops. Yeah, his go-to style is overcomplicating things. This is really tame for That's pretty good. I like that. My style is overcomplicating things. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Let's see. Then the hair kind of is like this. I'm gonna have the eyes closed. Makes it easier on me. I don't have to worry about like facial proportions too much, at least. I don't have to worry about it too much. Like, I'll still worry about it, but not as much as usual. The usual amount of worrying. I also like that the face is kind of squashing. So this is something that's kind of cool that I wouldn't have really thought about, but so they did this for her character, which is that the face actually is squashing a little bit as it's coming down. It's getting a little bit chubbier, kind of, at like the cheeks and the face. And then the shoulders, it looks like they rounded it off a little bit more. Yep, eyes closed is the winner. Yep. Don't have to worry about eyes. Just draw eyes closed. And then put in the eyebrows. Are they principles for a reason? Oh my goodness. Yeah. How'd you know? It's like, we put in this principle for a reason, guys. It's not isn't we didn't want to use the word squash and stretch for fun. There's a reason. There's a purpose for it. And again, this is more of like an experimentation rough pass, so it's not gonna be perfect, but like right now I think I might have made the face a bit too wide, but it's fine. Also, I'm trying to morph the style of Lackadaisy into essentially the Scott Pilgrim style, which is very different from each other. So I do have to do a little bit of improv in just like stylization and everything. So it's not as easy as just like a 1-2 transition or study where it's like, oh yeah, just pass it off really easily. It's like, no, I still gotta do some work. Still gotta put in some analysis of how it would look. Can't wait for the elephant anatomy video. What? Elephant anatomy? I don't remember making any such promises. I love using that line from Korra, where Tenzin's like, "You will promise me your teenage years will not be like this," and then I forgot the eldest daughter's like, "I will make no such promises." I love using that line. When I use it, I don't think anybody knows what I'm referencing. They're just like, "Why are you saying that?" But I'm just like, yeah, there's a Legend of Korra reference right there. Sorry for not chatting much. I'm watching this on the road with a spotty connect. Oh, yeah, no problem, man. That's all good. But glad you're like still joining and watching while I'm like animating this. Yeah. Hope it's on the road in like a road trip kind of sense. I think the hair is actually a bit off. Gonna move it. Maybe like here. Okay. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Show references is my humor. Love his references and all that. That's all that matters. Yeah, I love my references. I'll make all the references, and then my friends are just like, at this point they're so familiar with me making references that if they're like, that sounds a little odd to say, like that doesn't sound like a real line that I would say like normally, they'd be like, is that a reference? Are you referencing something? It's like, wow, how'd you know? I am referencing something. Just like my go-to state, just referencing things. The great thing too about this is that we'll just flip this one on the other one, so we don't have to redraw the whole thing, because we only have about like 10 minutes or so. I might not draw the whole pose on the next one. I'll just quickly draw like the face or something, maybe. Oh, look at that. It's kind of fun. Who's the Legend of Korra? Is that Popcorn? No. Wait, that's a joke. Wait, do you not know Legend of Korra? Yo, that's wild. I don't think I've ever met. Like, if you haven't seen the show, that's understandable. But not knowing what it is? Ah, wow. Do you know, or is that like or is that like a sarcasm? Maybe it's sarcasm. I can see it being sarcasm. Who's Korea? What? Dang, you guys break my heart. I'm just kidding. Legend of Korea? Yo, that does sound like a show. I feel like the face might be a bit too wide, but eh. Korean soap opera. You know, I've not watched a single Korean show, which is maybe it doesn't sound that crazy like now, but when I was growing up with in like this sounds so strange. Not really growing up, I guess, but in high school, everybody was watching Korean dramas. So I feel like it's kind of bizarre that I've never seen a Korean, like I never bothered watching Korean dramas, even though people were watching it like everywhere. At least like my friends and people in my school, everybody was watching Korean dramas. Okay, Okay, I don't count Squid Game. I guess Squid Game is a Korean drama, but I don't count it just because not it's not from you know what I mean. like the not from Netflix. Here, I'll put it like that. A non-Netflix Korean drama. I've never seen that. Yeah, like you know, the usual dramas. There's some weird concepts for Korean dramas. They get pretty out there. Nice response, but yeah, I'm on a road trip. Not I'm not the one. Well, glad you're enjoying the video while on a road trip. Sounds fun. You know, it's the end of summer. Gotta have your road trips, of course. You know. It's not a summer without road trips. Or even just like a day road trip. Oh, Kevin, have you been to the Peterborough? Was it the Dube Bridge? Have you been there? I went there yesterday. I guess that's in the opposite direction of you, right? London is like London and UK. Peterborough is east of you, right? Because it's east of me. I have to like travel. Took like a 2-hour drive to like Whitby. Took so long. Traffic was huge. Northeast of me. Yeah, okay. This is the same for me too. It's about like northeast. Yeah, I went to that bridge. It was not bad. It was kind of like a cool, neat bridge. Interesting views. I feel like my character is a little bit longer or taller than the Lackadaisy proportions. So, it's a little bit off character model. Okay, I'm gonna try this where we flip. Essentially just duplicate this one. We do what we did, which is to flip it and then move it down around here. Keeps disconnecting, no. Yo, hate it when that happens. Hey, look at that. Eh, you know what? That kind of works. This is pretty cool. Were you at the medieval times the other day? No, I did pass by medieval times though. I went to Budweiser Stadium for a concert. That was fun. Um, and we did walk by medieval times. Me and my sister, when we were walking by, were like, "Does anybody still go to medieval times?" I can't. Like, I'm surprised it's still open. I'm actually genuinely impressed that it's still around. Because I'm like, who still goes to medieval times? But I don't know. Yeah, so this is what we're basing it on, and I think it actually turned out pretty good. Kind of worked. Obviously, it's just 3 frames, so I think this kind of goes to show like what the usual process for animating is kind of like. Or maybe I'll put it here. It's gonna be like super spaced out. Here, I'll max the screen. Yeah. I'm gonna play it. Let's just see how it goes. I'm gonna like clear cache. Yeah, it's a. Oh wait, I can make this a perfect loop. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay. Then 1, 2. Okay, so 23. Hey, look at that. Okay. I mean, she's just swinging her legs back and forth at this point, but but you know, it kind of works. Look at that. Blink 182. No, I went to go see the Beaches. Toronto-based band. Yeah, let's go. But other than that, this turned out not too bad. It kind of works. I got a loop in. Look at that. Take away the background. Let's see. Where did I want to end it? 23. Try not to hit herself. Yeah, that's true. It's getting real close to her face, though. That glove. Yeah, so did a quick animation using the Lackadaisy dance sequence as a guide, so you can kind of see it. And this is how I would do a master study for animation. Obviously, this is like the very, 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 very early initial stages of doing a study, but this is how I would break it down. Approach it kind of like how you would do your typical animation. Animate the keyframes, find the big poses and the largest changes in action. So that for me, it was finding her down pose. So that's what we started off with. And I wanted to find the next most extreme pose, and that would be when the character is at its highest point, and that's what I did here. So you can see I'm trying to follow the pose and the way that the character is looking, and then based off of Quinn's advice of using technology to our advantage, I simply just took the first frame, duplicated it, but flipped it, and then followed the footing so that the footing matched where it should be. And then I just did the same thing on the other side. So when you play it, it just looks more of like a loop. Oops. When we play it, it just looks more like a loop, like she's dancing, kind of back and forth, but she's just swinging one leg back and forth. That's it. So yeah, no, it looked pretty cool. And this is how I would block off a typical animation sequence, and then I would start adding the breakdowns. So the breakdowns in this case for the dancing character would be when the character is transitioning. So like this part, you can see there's a transition between from the highest pose, she's about to come down, so the hair is kind of expanding, and then there's a transitional or breakdown pose to allow for her to get to the lowest pose. And so those I would start adding in. And this is how I would study and break down an animation that someone else has done to learn for myself. Then, yeah, I guess for the first time ever, I get to end kind of right on time. It's 4:58, and yeah. Oh, look at this bonus tip: if you use a Lackadaisy character in your study, post it in their Discord server for free encouragement from its members. Wow, that's pretty nice. Okay, so we ended it early. If you guys enjoyed this stream, I'll leave the animation kind of just looping while I read off a little bit of our closing statements. If you enjoyed the stream, remember to like and subscribe. This is a great way of just showing your support for us. It is a great way for you to also be reminded of upcoming streams and videos coming up. For next week, we are on break, so there is no stream scheduled. But after that, we will be returning for the fall season. Isn't that mind-blowing? It's fall. It's September. It feels like yesterday that it was just like summer just started. You guys were just maybe on school break, summer break, and then now school's starting just again, like right around the corner. It's wild. But yes, feel free to like and subscribe. It's a great way to show support, and we do greatly appreciate it. But if you would like to support us even further, remember that we do have Patreon, and if you support us on Patreon, you get exclusive perks, just like chatting with us, and we are kind of scheduled at different moments during the week. I show up on Saturdays, and as you can see, each of our other instructors get a different day, but yesterday we just had our live call and had a lot of fun chatting with members and critiquing the work, giving advice, and just kind of overall appreciating the stuff that our community is creating. And if you'd like to see this final animation posted, feel free to follow us on our social media. We are on Instagram, Discord, and Facebook. This sequence will be posted on our Discord probably first, and then afterwards it'll be put on our YouTube community page and on Instagram and Facebook later. So if you want to be updated and see the final sequence without all this UI and YouTube interface, social media is the best way to check out our final pieces of work. Sorry, I had to like burp partway through. And yeah, that's kind of it. We are Wing Canvas. If you enjoyed our stream, definitely continue supporting and following us, and also maybe check out our website if you want some classes and want to attend some classes with our fellow instructors and learn more about how to improve your art skills. So yeah, that's kind of it. Thank you for joining us, and yeah, hope you guys have a good weekend. See ya next time. Still blows my mind that we ended on time for once. Yeah. Bye. Have a good weekend. Have a good summer. Bye-bye.